The rain poured over Mexico City as if the heavens themselves were trying to wash away someone's mistakes. Inside the Grand Plaza Hotel, chandeliers glimmered like shattered stars. Laughter echoed without joy, and perfume mixed with the scent of ambition. Among waiters rushing between tables, Amelia Hernandez moved quietly, her blue apron stained with sugar and dreams. Her pastries were perfection, but tonight, even her art couldn't hide the storm inside her chest. She wasn't just nervous. She was trembling with a truth she could no longer carry alone. Across the room, Raul Vargas stood surrounded by powerful men, his confidence glowing brighter than the lights above. The same man who once looked at her like she was the only thing that existed. But now his eyes were distant, cold, and distracted. Amelia's heart pounded as she took a deep breath and walked toward him. Every step felt like stepping through her own fear. "Raul," she said softly, her voice trembling but firm. He turned, startled, his smile fading. "We need to talk." For a second, the noise around them vanished. The man who once swore he'd never hurt her now looked at her like a stranger. She held her breath, searching for any sign of the person she loved. Then she whispered the words that would change everything. "I'm pregnant." The sound of rain outside grew louder, matching the silence that fell between them. Raul blinked once, then twice, his face stiff. Finally he spoke, coldly, like she was a problem to solve. "That's your issue, Amelia. Not mine." The words sliced through her heart like glass. She stood frozen, fighting back tears, realizing that sometimes love doesn't end with shouting. It ends with silence and indifference. The hotel lights faded behind her as Amelia stepped into the storm. Rain soaked through her thin dress, but she didn't stop. Her breath came in short gasps, her shoes slipping on the wet pavement, yet she walked faster, like she could outrun the pain. Raul's words echoed in her mind, cold, sharp, unforgettable. "That's your issue, not mine." Each syllable felt heavier than the rain hitting her skin. She wanted to scream, to turn back time, to wake up and find it was all a dream. But it wasn't. It was her new reality. She reached a quiet bus stop, her reflection trembling in the puddles below. Her hands clutched her stomach, not out of fear but protection. Somewhere deep inside, a tiny heartbeat reminded her she wasn't truly alone. That thought became her strength. She wiped her tears, straightened her back, and whispered to herself, "You'll have me, little one." No matter what, the next morning Amelia resigned from the hotel without a word. Whispers followed her, but she kept her eyes forward. Pride had no place in survival. She packed her few belongings and took the first bus heading out of the city. The countryside rolled past, green and endless, washing the city's cruelty away. As the sun rose behind the mountains, Amelia closed her eyes, imagining a life where her child could laugh without fear or shame. She didn't know how she'd manage, but she knew this. She would build her future from nothing if she had to. Because some heartbreaks don't destroy you, they build you. Years slipped by like quiet rivers through the valleys of San Miguel de Allende. The once broken girl who had left Mexico City behind had transformed into a woman of strength and grace. Amelia built a small bakery on the corner of a cobblestone street, where the scent of vanilla and citrus drifted through the morning air. Locals called her La Milagrosa, the miracle woman, because her desserts carried warmth that healed even the saddest hearts. Behind her counter, A little boy with dark curls and bright eyes often helped her count coins and hand out sweets. His name was Leo, her son, her reason to breathe. Every time she looked at him, she saw both her greatest loss and her greatest gift. She taught him kindness, resilience, and joy, never once speaking of the man who had turned away. Yet sometimes, when she saw Leo smile, she caught glimpses of Raoni, the curve of his jaw, the spark in his eyes, and her chest would ache with a strange mixture of pain and pride. One evening, as the golden sunset kissed the rooftops, Amelia received a letter with a familiar logo stamped in gold, Vargas Hotels. Her hands trembled as she unfolded it. The company planned to open a new boutique resort in San Miguel, and they were seeking local partnerships. Her bakery had been chosen to cater their launch event. For a long moment she just stood there, staring at the letter. The past she had buried so carefully was walking right back into her life. The day of the hotel's grand opening arrived, and San Miguel buzzed with excitement. Lanterns hung across the streets and soft music drifted from nearby cafes. Amelia stood behind a table of her finest desserts. Lavender flan, cinnamon truffles, and honey pastries that shimmered under the evening lights. Her hands were steady, but her heart raced. She told herself this was just another event, another client. But deep down she knew the truth. The moment she had dreaded for years was here. When the black car stopped in front of the hotel, the crowd turned. Raoni Vargas stepped out, sharp in a grey suit, still carrying that effortless confidence that once drew her in. Yet there was something different about him, an emptiness behind his polished smile. Time had changed them both, but his eyes still carried the same spark that had once made her heart believe in forever. He didn't recognize her at first. She kept her head lowered, pretending to adjust the pastries as he greeted guests. But fate has a way of catching up when you least expect it. As he reached for a plate, his gaze froze on her hands, the same delicate hands that once held his face in the dark. His voice faltered. "Amelia?" The sound of her name on his lips sent a wave of memories crashing through her. For a second, the noise around them faded, and it was as if the world had paused. She looked up slowly, their eyes meeting again after 6 long years. And in that silence, Raoni felt something he had buried too deep, regret. For a moment, neither of them moved. The air between them was thick with everything left unsaid. Years of distance, of choices that couldn't be undone. Raoni's lips parted as if to speak, but Amelia turned away, forcing herself to stay calm. She focused on arranging her desserts, pretending his presence didn't shake her to her core. "It's been a long time," he finally said, his voice softer than she remembered. "Too long," she replied quietly, not meeting his eyes. He noticed the strength in her now, the quiet confidence of a woman who no longer needed anyone to stand for her. Throughout the evening, he found himself watching her from across the room. The woman who once stood in his shadow now glowed on her own. Guests praised her work, children laughed around her stall, and every smile she gave carried a piece he had lost long ago. Guilt twisted inside him, deep and sharp. He wanted to ask where life had taken her, what she had endured, but the words stuck in his throat. Then he saw a boy, small, bright-eyed, and full of life, running toward her with a chocolate-stained grin. "Mama, I did it!" "I sold all the cookies," the child said proudly. Raoni froze. The boy's voice echoed in his mind like a melody from a forgotten dream. His heart stumbled as he looked closer. Those same dark curls, that familiar spark in the eyes. It was as if he was staring into a mirror of his own youth. The world spun for a moment as realization struck him like a storm. The child wasn't just anyone's son, he was his. Raoul stood frozen, his breath caught in his throat as the truth settled heavily in his chest. He watched the boy laugh, his tiny hands reaching for Amelia, who lifted him effortlessly and pressed a gentle kiss to his forehead. That single act, so simple, so full of love, cut deeper than any words could. Years of success, money, and fame suddenly felt meaningless. He had spent his life building empires, but had walked away from the only legacy that truly mattered. His voice trembled as he finally whispered, "Is he mine?" Amelia looked at him, calm but firm. "You lost the right to ask that years ago." Her tone wasn't bitter. It was filled with quiet strength, the voice of a woman who had learned to survive without help. Raoul lowered his gaze, shame burning through him. He had hurt her, abandoned her, and now he was standing before the proof of everything he'd lost. As the night went on, Raoul couldn't leave. He watched from a distance as Leo helped his mother hand out pastries, his laughter filling the air. Every smile from that child was a reminder of what his arrogance had cost him. When the event ended, Raoul approached once more, his eyes glistening. "I don't deserve forgiveness," he said, "but if you ever let me try, I'd spend the rest of my life earning it." Amelia hesitated, then looked down at her son, whose innocent eyes met his father's. "Then start by being someone he can look up to," she said softly. Raoul nodded, tears falling silently as he realized redemption doesn't come from words. It begins with change.